bobbing along in our barrel. Some of us tip right over the edge. But there's one thing really mystifying. Got me laughing now, it's got me crying. All my life will be testifying till I know. I wonder why the wonderful. I wonder why the wonder falls on me. I wonder why the wonder falls. With everything I touch and hear and see.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 4 of Bobbin Along, a Wonderfalls podcast. We discuss the criminally underwatched 2003 series, Wonderfalls. Also, a heads up here, I oops-a-daisy deleted all of my notes for this episode and our Buffy and Angel episodes in 2 hours, so I'm going to be winging it as we go. Luckily, I'm joined as always by BJ Kramer. Hi, BJ.
Yay!
Our stalwart producer / reliable co-host that's on every episode of everything. We're also joined, I believe for the first time on this particular podcast, by our good friend Naomi. Hey, girl.
Hi.
Naomi is if you see anything on the Gerardcast Facebook page, like at all, it was Naomi.
I mean,
And Naomi has a whole heap of names, so it's Naomi Upper Horton Vienna.
Yeah.
Bravo Delta.
Yeah.
Whiskey Tango Foxtrot.
It's
And-
For what
fine.
it's worth, I only remember Naomi. Sorry.
That's fine.
I also believe this is the first time we've had Will Van Sittert is back. Will, is this the first time you've done this podcast, or did you do this one before?
I did the very first one.
You did the very first one with
did.
Jewel. So we're talking about episode 4, which is Wound Up Penguin. Before we start, Naomi, what was your knowledge of Wonderfalls before we started this show, and what do you think about it so far?
Bagel. I didn't know anything about it before. I'd never heard of it before, but I figured if Brandon likes this better than Buffy, then it's worth checking it out. And so far, I'm enjoying it. I really enjoyed this episode, which we'll talk about soon. And yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's fun. I don't know why it got canceled. That sucks.
Yeah, I think it got canceled for the same reason why so many other shows around that time got canceled, and that's just that, like, we were transitioning into DVDs, and I guess this was pre-live streaming, but it was like, I don't know, and also Fox sucks, so that's probably what it was.
And technically, this is the
yeah.
last episode that aired. So, it wasn't the last one, but it was the last of these 4. So we're
Yes.
now officially, we watched the last thing that's been on TV. So
Correct.
everything from here on out, if you've never seen the show on DVD, these are the episodes you'll never have seen before then. Which is
Correct.
kind of cool.
And there's
There
8
seems
more
to be
of
a
them.
theme
The
of
trip.
4 and go.
prematurely canceled shows are almost inevitably be called too smart.
Yes.
Right.
And this certainly fits that bill. This is
It is. I agree with that. And this episode in particular is a really interesting one because it kind of delves into this whole thing about religion and faith and sort of we're discovering like where Heather Malone says it was way too high concept for Fox viewers. Certainly Friday night Fox viewers. I think it was sandwiched between like America's Funniest Home Videos and Cops.
Right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That it really is a death spot.
They nailed
Yes.
the demo on that. Mhm.
Yeah. Oh, they knew it.
So I would say that like this episode is a really interesting one because it explores those sort of themes, especially in the context of this show, where it could be this sort of Joan of Arc religious sort of situation, but it never really is established what sort of supernatural things are at work here. And in a lot of ways, Buffy's like that too, where there's the implication that, okay, we have demons, we have vampires, we have ghosts, we have witches, we have da-da-da-da, but they're still kind of atheisty over whether these gods actually exist.
Despite
Right.
holy water and crosses being functional.
Right. And it makes you wonder like how much of, not to go too deep into Buffy, but it makes you wonder like how much of that is because vampires are paranoid of them or what. I mean, like it's very interesting. I don't know.
Well, and let's face it, the nun in this one sister is bonkers. I mean, we dive in later when she starts talking about exorcism, it's really odd that she knows nothing about it whatsoever.
Well, it depends how religious zealotry, you grew up with, For
Yeah.
some of us, it's not as bonkers as others.
You're right. But going on, like, so with this episode being one of the last ones, this is the last introduction we have to the main characters. We get a little bit more on the bartender and where he stands on things, and we actually get more with the brother and his theology. So this is like the last introduction before we actually dive into the stories of how these characters are really connecting. So it stinks that it got canceled because it's like they've set up all the characters now. We know the sister, we know the dad, we know the mom. Now we got the brother and the bartender pretty good. Now they can move forward with their stories, and then the show's gone.
And let's not forget Mahandra / Janet.
Oh yeah, her too.
So this episode starts with Jay and the bartender are hanging out in the bar. They're closing up and they hear like a scuffle, and they think it's a rat, and it's inside of the big giant like fake barrel that's their sort of mascot of the bar. And they walk over, and it's some woman, and she runs off, and that's a whole situation.
Because no one noticed a woman climbing up into a barrel and then staying inside because there's no side entrance. Time. Yeah. Like that was quite a bit for them to even look inside. Imagine a woman get in there, bring a lamp in with her and some stuff.
Not only that, but it falls over and rolls fairly easily when she gets out. So getting in without upsetting it was, I don't know. I watched that, and of course, hashtag acceptance, but still.
Hashtag acceptance.
Help to laugh.
Yeah. Sure. And it's really interesting because the animals in this episode keep telling her to bring her back to him. Right, to him. And they chase this woman down to the train station. They find a man that's like tracking her and trying to find her. And they assume that she is a runaway prostitute and he's her goth daddy pimp.
As you should.
Incidentally, two insignificantly minor characters in the train station, the completely unhelpful ticketing agent and the creepy janitor guy, were both really delightful, and I wish there was more of them.
Yeah. Mary, hi Mary, and welcome, says, this was a great show. I recommend listening to the commentary on the DVD.
I have to disagree. Just listen to us.
We'll be the commentary.
We got everything you need.
We are experts.
When I first saw the show, I didn't know the Joan of Arc whole thing about it at all. But when I watched the first time through, I had to watch the commentary, and that's where I was like, oh, I get it now. And like watching it now and knowing all that background, it makes it better because you can see what they're playing into and what they're laying down. I mean, it was still great beforehand, but
what came first, Wonderfalls or Joan of Arcadia?
Joan of Arc.
Or Joan of Arc. Joan of Arc was a little early.
Joan of Arcadia, I mean, the show.
Yeah, Joan of Arcadia, I think, beat Wonderfalls by 1 year. I'm not 100% sure of that, but I am looking it up to pretend like I already knew. It premiered the same year. So there you go.
Can I have a really dumb question for former Orthodox Jews?
Yes.
Somebody give me a 30-second recap on Joan of Arc. I mean, all I know is that she was played in a movie by Leeloo Dallas. I mean, that's all I know.
So God talked to her and helped her. I'm old on this too, but basically helped her win wars in battles. And basically she was saying that God spoke to her and told her what to do, and she followed it. But no one ever heard it. No one saw anything. So they all thought she was crazy. In the end, they end up burning her at the stake because she thinks she's bonkers and a witch.
But she led an entire...
interim, she became like some religious symbol to everybody. And
she claimed to be one. And that's why they kind of called her heresy and burned her, because she kept saying God spoke to her. And this is at the time when women were not treated so well, and for a woman to be the one that God talks to is totally not what the church was for.
What I'm wondering is that in light of that, how was she successful in some ways? That she won wars?
So she was 16 when the voices started talking to her, the voices of the saints, and then she was like defending the King of France, who there was like this movement to usurp him. So Joan of Arc like became this like champion for the King of France, and she fought wars and she defended him and she fought against the English and she won, and she was like 16, 17 at the time. And then at 20, they burned her ass at the stake because they said that she was hearing from demons.
Checks out.
She was probably a paranoid schizophrenic.
So did the king accepted her? It was just church that
Yes.
did not accept her.
Yeah, because she won like in impossible odds. She would win every time.
Well,
and it was
if
just
she's
But not
helping
because she
you
became
win.
like
oh yeah.
she didn't become like Super Ninja, right? It was just that
No.
she
She
was
got
the
lucky, I
symbolic
think.
head of these forces.
Yeah.
Okay.
She like
Yeah.
strategy wise.
Also,
Yeah.
just to clarify for anyone watching, the chances that we are right about this story are just about zero. But
Oh,
that's what
come
I
on.
remember of it, so we'll stick with it.
Well, I appreciate everybody who, learned something about
So
Christianity.
like beautiful
Yeah, I know
angels with
so
harps
much.
came down and just said, "Yo, Joan, come on!" And
Yeah,
that's
like you got to
the story we're
defend the
going
king, bitch.
that's the
Okay.
story that we're telling.
Sounds
So
good.
there you go, Joan of Arc. So they track this nun down. I'm sorry, we don't know she's a nun yet. They track this
No,
woman
she's
down.
a prostitute
She's a prostitute. She's a lazy hooker,
A lazy
as they
hooker.
refer to her.
Oh, I
trying to
didn't
get
know that.
out of the system as they try.
She's trying to get out of the system, and he's her got daddy pimp. But they find out that she's actually a nun, and that he's a priest, and that she left the convent, and he's trying to bring her back. I wish we had a Catholic on this episode. My resident Catholic is in the next room, but I think he's sleeping.
Really?
Will, were you raised Catholic?
I went to a Catholic high school and everything.
Is that a thing that
Oh.
happens, that the nuns would track down or the priest would track down a nun that left the convent?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know nuns that just run away from convents either, but I'm guessing that if they leave, usually they say their piece and that's it.
Yeah.
I guess. But they wouldn't be like,
yeah.
no.
I mean, this wasn't covered in Doubt or Sister Act, so I'm not sure.
Then it doesn't exist.
if it's not in Hollywood, it's not right. So
Or Sister Act 2, Back in the Habit.
Or the
Just
sound
about
of
to say
music.
that.
Right, or the Sound of Music.
Oh, how great would that be? Sound of Music would be much shorter. I mean, just
yeah,
If the
I mean,
convict
yeah,
came back and tracked her down.
yeah, just
they
drag her
didn't
away.
go after her, and she went and had a family and everything. So
Right.
Dirty slut.
Sang in public.
She was also
saying.
lazy. So we find out then that the nun left the church because of cheese.
no, she lost faith. The cheese is what got
She
her
lost
into-
faith. Yeah, she lost faith because of cheese.
which is
Because
ridiculous.
maybe it's just cheese.
But it's because God
That's
wouldn't talk to her,
wonderful.
but God was in everything, and she knew it from the cultures of cheese, which makes no sense because cultures of cheese is science, and religion and science do
No,
not.
but that's what she was saying. She was saying, like, I realized that cheese was just a bacterial flirtation of enzymes.
Yeah.
What if I'm just a bacterial flirtation of enzymes?
well, because she is, but
Yeah, we all are. That's because God isn't real. But like
Well,
she's going, yeah.
Preach.
and
we got a Catholic and a Jew in here.
and she talks about like all these people like were telling me that God was there. The nuns were talking to God. I was able to talk, and she's like, but God didn't say anything to me. And I love that she said, the cheese was my undoing. This is the miracle of life melted over these chili fries, a bacterial flirtation of enzymes, the commingling of friendly microorganisms giving birth to curds and whey. It's such a beautiful way to think of cheese.
It truly is.
But notice she never ate any of the cheese, but she had a lot of it in front of her the whole episode.
Yeah, she wears the cheese. The cheese does not wear her.
That's right.
There's a future Buffy reference coming for you.
I did like when the conversation when the brother was talking about God talking and how people interpret those things, and how it was a very non-denominational, not pro or against God. It was just how people can interpret things and how they run with them versus, people may say that God's talked to them, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's true. And to kind of lighten her up a little bit, even though he didn't know she was a nun at the time, which was really cool to see it in that perspective of it trying not to go either way.
And I think it's interesting because the conversation about like faith in this episode is interesting because it took that one thing for her to question everything. And I think that's like the most devoutly religious when they see God in everything and then they see one thing where they don't see God, then their whole belief system crumbles. It's like people who are sort of moderately religious or like sort of, casually religious, I guess you could say, don't generally go through these huge things because they can rationalize away like, oh, well, this is this and this is this. But like devout religious people really have entire crises of faith over something as dumb as cheese.
But it's the expectation that everything has to be perfect and aligned up, and the world is messy. It's always going to be, and we have to accept that It's what we do with it. So that shouldn't lose faith if you have it. And if you don't have it, that shouldn't sway you either way. Like, it should just be,
Right.
we know that it's crazy world. I mean, look at 2020. It's nuts. It's bonkers.
Right.
But it's not, it shouldn't take away your faith if you have it. It should instead allow you to see the good that's in it. And if you don't have faith in those things, it's not going to change anything anyway. So you're fine.
Come back for our next installment of The Church of Bobbin and Law.
Like I said, I'm trying to play that middle ground too.
No,
Like,
I get it.
No,
So the
I
penguin
mean,
tells, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say. I mean, like I'm like an agnostic Jew on a good day. Let's just say. Okay.
You're like a Christmas and Easter Jew.
No. I'm
Line
very,
ever.
no. I'm a very culturally Jewish.
Yeah,
Like culturally speaking, I love
yeah.
the
Bagels.
culture. But in terms
Bagels
of
and
my
latkes.
yeah, but in terms of my
Matzo ball.
belief in God, I'm agnostic at best. So
Yeah.
I really liked this episode for that reason. It was very like agnostic friendly of like, well, maybe it doesn't really matter, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Well, and the then we see the penguin say to her, because before she was saying bring her back, and then now the penguin says bring her back to him. So Jay assumes that the penguin is talking about bringing Sister Katrina back to God, him, capital H.
right.
And so she goes through this whole situation where she's trying to get Sister Katrina to believe in that God is there and that she was wrong and whatever. And then, of course, Jay's brother gets involved and talks to her about faith and all these other things. Okay, so they have a big argument. They're in front of the bar, and which animal was it? I wrote it in my notes,
The
but my notes have
lion.
disappeared. The lion
lion.
says, "Break the tail light."
Yes.
Break the yeah.
Okay, so this one drove me nuts. So he says, break the taillight. All she did was open the door, talk to the nun. He talks to her. She's like, see? And then she turns back. She closes the door, walk around, and suddenly the car can roll when she never touched anything in the car other than the door. But
No,
now
didn't it show her purse snagging the gear shift? I could have
By
sworn
accident.
did it?
By
Yeah.
accident. This was similar to
Did
the
not
Pink
catch
Flamingos one,
Yeah.
where she didn't follow the instructions, and what happened needed to
Still
happen
happened.
anyway. Her,
Right.
her
Again,
father
with the car.
needed to survive the blood clot by getting sent to the hospital, and this guy needed to be arrested.
I mean, let's face it. She's crazy because she's hearing the voices and she gets involved in these people's lives. But really, when it comes to the things that need to happen, she has no significance as to what happens. It all just happens anyways and works out coincidentally throughout.
This does work out completely if we say that this is all in her head and we're looking at her retroactively saying what she heard, even though she really didn't think of it until after the fact. That's kind of the only way it can make sense that way.
Yeah.
And as much as I'm poking holes at it, I still love it, but it is all coincidence.
but I mean, part of it is about helping her to be a better person too, right?
That's an uphill battle.
Yeah, and you
Well,
also
but I
long
mean, that is part of
Yeah.
it. That is part of the point.
yeah,
And-
no, yeah. I was just gonna say it definitely is her character. She has a huge arc throughout the series, obviously, because she's the main character, and it is building from. They show her being from episode 1 just selfish, self-centered,
Right.
really a horrible person.
It's like she belongs in the good place.
Yes. Yeah, they do. And this episode is really the first episode that shows that her mental health is starting to suffer from these incidents, which is interesting because in the second season they were going to put her in a mental institution. So
Third season.
Oh,
third season, sorry. Yeah, so there you have it.
What was the second
So-
season's theme going to be?
Immaculate Conception. We'll get to it
Nice.
in a future. Yeah, we'll get to it in a future episode. But yeah, so we see Eric goes. The bartender Eric goes to the bathroom to talk to the priest while he's pooping, which is
scene.
rude. Very, very
Such a
rude.
great scene.
never
But
did
it-
that.
But
It
it's
becomes a
built like
confessional.
confessional,
Yeah.
yeah.
Fantastic.
And of course, they're wooden stalls. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I love. Okay, my favorite part of this whole episode is Jay going to her parents' house, and they try to get her to go to Episcopalian church with them, or Presbyterian church with them. Yeah, Because it's nice that you believe in God all of a sudden, Jay. It would just be better if it was our God. That scene killed me. That scene made me laugh so much. And and I really loved it. And him saying Presbyterian prayers go straight to the source, right to JC. So she flees, and before this happens, Sister Katrina is talking to Jay's brother about exorcisms because she now believes that Jay is getting these visions, and she believes that it's demons. So she's talking to Jay's brother, Aaron, about exorcisms. And Aaron tells her all of the things that like the Catholic Church used to do, and then he goes into like what the Protestant churches did for exorcisms, which was even more fucked up. Which I actually will tell you, I didn't know much about Protestant churches doing exorcisms. When I think of exorcism, I think of Catholics.
Right. I think of The Exorcist
because we saw the movie. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Not holding a knife over someone ready to stab him. I mean,
after chloroforming her.
Yeah, this is where my hashtag acceptance kind of broke.
She couldn't afford a ham sandwich, but she has chloroform.
Yeah, and baby oil.
Right.
What, BJ, what were you saying? This is where your hashtag acceptance falls apart?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand being ignorant about the ways of the world, but straight up chloroforming and trying to kill somebody with a knife, yeah. I mean, yeah. I was kind of taken out of the fiction of it at that point because it was just so ridiculous.
Well, she clearly wasn't mentally sound. I mean, cheese gave her a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
I'll accept cheese.
I have known enough kooky. I mean, I had a best friend when I was a kid that ended up being sent to BYU for electroshock therapy because he was gay.
Nice.
So yeah, it's not that far off to be believable for me.
All right.
But sure, like, yeah. So anyway, so then we find out, so Sister Katrina gets arrested. They show up, the cops show up, they stop the situation. They don't kill anyone. Weird how that works on this show.
Interesting. They were all
This was early 2000s, you know.
Nobody knew back then.
Right. They didn't know better.
And we see Sister Katrina, like, she's dealing with the cops.
And Father, what's his name? John?
Father Scolari, yeah.
He got pulled over because of the taillight.
Because of the taillight. Yes, I skipped that. I was wrong to skip that. He got pulled over because of the taillight, and it turns out that he's a deadbeat dad. That he has a son from before he was in the daughter from when he was in the priesthood, and that he didn't know about. Yes, Naomi.
Can they actually arrest someone for? I mean, that was a weird scene.
Yeah, if she's filed that he hasn't been paying child support and she's not been able to track him down, then he'll have like a warrant.
It's like a warrant. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. And she said to him, "I'm sorry that I reported you, but
I couldn't find you." Yeah.
So she admitted that she did put filings in for him. So,
and I'll be honest, this scene got me very emotional. I thought it was a very sweet scene with the daughter. I don't know. Am I the only one?
I thought the daughter would run scared and crying at, like, you know, some strange man all dressed in black saying, I'm your daddy now. Sounds terrifying.
Exactly how it went.
They obviously want to pay the child because the child didn't say a single word, which I can't believe. Yeah. Like, you're like, oh, kudos. Didn't have to pay that bill for that child today.
Exactly.
Yeah. We're out of budget. You're not talking. Let's go.
Yep. $200 a day, extra salary. I love that scene, actually. I thought it was really, really sweet. And I loved Jay's acknowledgement with Katrina about when they look each other in the eyes and they go, bring her back to it. Like, I love that. It might have been hokey. Yeah, it might have been super hokey. I don't know, but I liked it. So
it worked.
I did.
It was hokey, but it worked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love the line where he's like, "I'm father," because he's so used to introducing it, and then he's like, "I'm your father." Like, I know it's cheesy, but it's the transition of I want to be here now that I know this is here, and you're like, okay, cool.
Right. And I thought it was like a really hopeful episode, and I think that it shows a really positive side of Jay's sort of situation. I'm curious, BJ, what were your final thoughts on this episode?
First of all, Empire Strikes Back has ruined "I'm Your Father" for everyone ever. So, yeah, of course, it went through your mind too, right?
Yeah.
You can't help it.
Yeah.
Other than the amazing degrees of stupidity. Just in the exorcism bit went way too far for me. Yeah. I thought there were some absolutely delightful and hilarious moments in this. Like I said, the little smattering of characters that aren't important, but they wrote really well and were funny. I liked all of it. This is so far my second favorite of the episodes out of 4. I guess isn't saying that much, but it is.
Yeah. I also I like that they referred to the priest as if Johnny Cash were an Irishman. That was such a weird way to describe something, but
and then of course when they introduce him, he has a nice little guitar background.
Yeah, they walk the line. Yeah,
didn't catch that.
Yeah.
He wasn't Irish. Is this a dumb question? Because I was like listening and I'm like, but he's not Irish. Okay.
Right. Whatever. It was still funny.
He looks like an Irish Johnny Cash would look.
I guess.
I guess.
Sure.
And if you pay attention in Jay's trailer, she's a klepto now. She has the lion, the monkey, the chameleon, the bear, and now the penguin too. She's got 5 of these little things with her now.
Yeah, and Sister Katrina even says like compliments her monkey, and she says, "I stole him from my therapist's office." Cheese.
Maybe that's why they burned Joan of Arc. Maybe she was stealing shit.
Maybe.
Also,
this is our second episode in a row where a movie is a movie plot is brought up by Jay as being the scenario she's in. This time it's Agnes of God, a movie about a Catholic nun who gets pregnant and claims that it's Immaculate Conception, which is really interesting. And and I love when Erin puts the salt shaker on the table and says, "Is the salt shaker talking to you?" And she just stares at it. I really love that. Carolyn DeVernus is so perfect in this role as Jay Tyler. It's hard to think of anyone else playing this role.
Yeah. Again, going back to they made her so awful in the first episode, but she's still so likable. So that her watching, and this is the first episode where you really see the relationship between her and the bartender blossom into like a friendship that can be more. But the fact that they're kind of doing hijinks together, and she's actually like wanting to impress him and say like, "Look, I'm helping someone. Aren't you still happy?" And you're like, so she's trying to be better, and you see that transition in her so well.
Yes, I agree.
And she flat out acknowledged that she likes him. Like she said something about like something to the nun about like doing that in front of the guy that I like is not cool, man, or whatever.
I know. And
like we knew it already because her doppelganger hits on him and she blows her top.
Right.
So
we
could
knew
tell,
it,
but this is overt.
Like,
yeah,
she said it's flat out. So
Naomi, I have a question for you. Do you think Eric is cute, the bartender?
He's all right.
I think he is the cutest. I think he's so
cute.
Right.
I mean, he's not.
He's
cute,
so handsome, and his features are so soft, and I just want to cuddle with him.
Okay.
He looks like just an average Joe guy, I guess.
Their own.
I guess.
He's not cute. Let's just say that.
And
I'm not sitting there like.
And I did find one line I wrote down that I liked, which is, "What if he's already beat her to death with a bag of oranges for withholding trick money?"
Of course think about those bags of peeled oranges that they try to sell you in Washington Heights.
Yeah.
You know this?
Yes. In the like cellophane bags.
I miss New York sometimes.
Naomi, what were your final thoughts on this episode?
I mean, like I said, I really liked it from like an agnostic point of view of like just sort of the exploration of faith and what it means, and and like ultimately, does it matter if you believe or not? Like, I don't know. Like for me, I always say that like I don't make choices based on if there's a higher power that's judging me. Like I'm gonna try and make the right choice because it's the right thing to do, right? So and this, well, I mean the whole show, but especially this episode has a very like what's the word, fatalistic, I guess. Like it just sort of comes together anyway, and it really didn't matter whether Jay believed or whether the nun believed. It all just like worked itself out.
Right.
The exorcism scene was super extra. It was woo. I mean, it was kind of the same as was that our last episode with the doppelganger where
Yes, yeah,
I was just like, I was having a hard time accepting the fact that after that happens, they're just cool. Like, it's all right, no problem.
Yeah.
Like that was a little much.
Yeah, I mean, that was the case in the early Buffy episodes too. It was like, oh, here's Jesse. He's going to be a main character. Oh, he's dead. Let's never speak of him again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is my favorite. This is my favorite episode yet. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Will, what are your final thoughts on this one?
I like it. Like I said, this is the final bridge so that they can move all the characters forward because they've got all their backstory somewhat introduced and everything. So now the relationships really take hold for the rest of the episodes. And so for me, it was good because, like I said, I like the Jay. I can never remember his name. The bartender, Aaron.
No, Eric.
Yeah. I like that now. It's not just a kind of cutesy thing. It's more like they're in cahoots together in some ways. And so now that can move forward. And then we got a little bit more of her and her brother together, which comes a lot more later on. Mm-hmm. So all the families introduced. So this is like the final, it thinks that this was it for the show because now everything's set for the whole series to really go in motion. But for me, I like the episode because it is that final bridge that does that and really shows you where it can go.
If I may, just one question for everybody. What do you think Eric's perspective on her state of mind is at this point? Like, he clearly doesn't think she's totally bonkers, but I think he thinks she's quirky, and I think that he thinks that she is like a really deep thinker. When she says things like "the lion told me to do it," he just accepts it because he's like, yeah, okay, like she's just like thinking too much into this thing. Yeah, and I don't see it.
I think so.
I don't think he thinks she's. I think he thinks she's playing with him a little bit. I don't think he thinks she's literal, and I think that's why he's like, okay, a lion told you, cool. Like, yeah.
I would say that this episode, Will is right. This episode is really the final bit of building these characters. They develop them, but this is the final bit of like building these characters. Our next episode is Crime Dog, and in Crime Dog, the Tyler's family nanny gets deported back to Canada. So we see a lot more of that sort of family dynamic amongst them, and it's honestly, I think it might be my favorite. It's my second favorite episode.
It's so good.
So, yeah. So we get more of the dad, we get more of the mom, we get more of the sister. Like, to me, the show is best when it's focusing on her and her relation with her family because her family.
Her mom. Fabulous. Oh my god. Her mom is amazing. Yes. Like, talk about total polar opposites. Like, so good.
I love that. You lied to us for 20 years. No, I lied to you one time, and then I just never bothered to correct it. That's a line to the next episode, and I love it. So anywho, that is it for our show today. Before we go, there are a couple things I need to chit chat about, and I forgot how to do it on this app. Here we go. What is happening? I guess I won't be because this doesn't want to work with me. So let's talk about our Patreon. We have a Patreon. It's patreon.com/GurArdcast.
Well, there he goes.
And if you sign up, you can get exclusive content. You can join our private Facebook group where we have all kinds of interaction. You can come and co-host an episode with us. And you can also co-host the interviews with us, which we'll be booking in the next couple of weeks. Jula's working hard on getting me some interviews lined up, and I'm doing my part as well. So we'd love to have you join us. It's $5 a month. I mean,
it's worth it.
It's totally worth it.
So worth it. I mean, come on.
Yeah. I love our fans so much, honestly. Like Naomi has recently sort of moved over to helping with events and things like that. And Naomi, how cool are the people that are in our group? Like,
I know.
They've become like a second family.
I know. I always tell people like it's kind of like a nice little community that we have going.
Yeah. Yeah.
So.
The Gur gang.
Yeah.
So please join us for that. Our Buffy podcast, GurArdcast, is available on all podcast websites. Bobbin Along will be available actually when we're finished. I'm going to go back and cut in our interviews with the episodes, and then those will be available to download on all podcast apps, because what you're seeing right here is only half of the episode. The other half will be the interviews, which you can only see on our Patreon patreon.com/GrowOurCast, and in our private Facebook group.
$5 a month is nothing. That's easy. You won't even notice it gone. Just do it.
Less than one trip to Starbucks.
Right?
Right. Here in an hour and 20 minutes, we'll have our next episode of GrowOurCast where we cover the Buffy episode Pangs and the Angel episode I Will Remember You. December 1st, we start Winging It, which is a podcast about The West Wing, hosted by myself and Apollo Bazell, where we will have guests from all across the political spectrum and actors and writers from the TV show. And finally, next week's episode of Bobbin Along is episode 5, Crime Dog. That's October 4th at 1 p.m. Pacific. So please join us for that. Will and Naomi, thank you so much for joining. This has been a hoot.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Lovely.
And BJ, as always, thank you for being there to check our facts and ask us about Joan of Arc. And we'll see you guys later.
Next
Bye.
week, you can tell me who that Jesus guy was.
Some hippie.
Just keep bobbing along.